Good morning. As we begin our service, we acknowledge that we gather from across the traditional lands of the Western Abenaki people, and we pay respect to their elders, both past and present. My name is Ginny Sassaman, and as today's worship associate, I extend to all of you a warm welcome. It may be cool and rainy and even maybe snowy this morning, and muddy. Yet we know we are in the early days of spring, a time of renewed hope and happiness. At the same time, much heaviness weighs on us all. In this moment, as we gather for worship, please know that you are welcome here with all that you are holding. Pressing concerns like the war in Ukraine, as well as the joyful abundance of this moment. You are welcome here. Thank you for joining in this time of worship from wherever you are, whether you are in the sanctuary, on Zoom, on Facebook, or watching the service on your own time. We deeply appreciate your presence and fellowship. For over 155 years, the Unitarian Church of Montpelier has been a sanctuary for those seeking both spiritual sustenance and peace and justice in the world. Whether you are a newcomer, a longtime member, or somewhere in between, every one of you is part of our beloved community. We are glad that you are here. Any and all newcomers to our congregation and worship service are invited to fill out our welcome form shared in the Zoom chat and available at the welcome table so that we can connect with you outside of our service. If you are joining in via Zoom, the chat function will be on for much of the service. It is a great way to publicly welcome and support one another, to affirm the hard work and effort of our worship team, and just in general to share good vibes and positive thoughts with each other. For technical issues or constructive thoughts, please send a private message to one of our Zoom hosts indicated with an asterisk by their names, or join us for coffee hour after this service and share any concerns there. Thank you to our greeters and ushers who are offering hospitality and tech help throughout the service. Additionally, on Zoom, you can click on the live transcript button wherever it lives on your screen for increased accessibility. I invite you now to take a moment to turn your video on and go into gallery view on your Zoom screen, or turn to your neighbors from your seat in the sanctuary. Let us greet one another with a wave hello and a warm smile. There you all are. Hi, everybody. Again, a warm welcome to all of you, wherever you are. I have a few brief announcements about the life of our congregation. First, we have an OWL class meeting in the vestry this morning, so those of you in the sanctuary are asked to exit the building after the service using the front doors, unless you are in need of the elevette or the restrooms. 2, children in 4th grade and below and their families are invited to an outdoor children's chapel today. We will meet at the Montpelier High School track at 1 p.m. for a trip to the Peace Park. Older kids and also adults who are young at heart are welcome. 3, the worship team will be leading a service of lamentation this Friday evening at 7:30 p.m., which is Good Friday in the Christian liturgical calendar. The service will be in person only in the sanctuary. All are welcome. More details for these and many other upcoming events in our church community can be found in the weekly e-newsletter. And now, I would like to invite UCM member Eliza Homick to the pulpit, and she will share a testimonial with us all for the Emerging from Hope Pledge Drive. Welcome, Eliza.
Good morning. My name is Eliza Homick, and I have been a member of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier for 3 years. I was lucky enough as an adult to have landed in Bethel, Vermont, which is 45 minutes away from 6 different Unitarian Universalist congregations, and they're all wonderful. How, you might ask, did I choose UCM as my spiritual home? It was easy. It felt like home. I walked into the sanctuary and saw the rocking chairs and the little bags of toys on each pew for the children. And I thought, this is a multi-generational community that I want to be a part of. And that was before I'd heard Eliza play the piano, before the warm greeting from my neighbor, before I'd heard Liza's story for all ages and Joan's homily. So as you can imagine, by the end of the service, I felt I'd arrived. UCM is important to me because it makes me want to be a better person and provides me with opportunities to grow. I'd like to share 3 moments from this year that motivated me to work to create a more just and kind world and to take good care of that world. At the end of the voting rights service, we were invited to call our senators. Deeply moved by Vertus's story, I decided for the first time in my life to stand up, call my senators, and make my voice heard. Then our vote to adopt the 8th principle affirmed that this congregation is filled with inspiring people I want to learn from. You shared your thoughts and feelings and ages and disagreed with love and respect. I've carried that meeting with me as an example of respectful dialogue, a rarity in this increasingly polarized world. And the last moment I'd like to lift up was Liza's Time for All Ages, when she posed the questions, how do you know the earth loves you? How do you love the earth? I think of these questions daily and am filled with gratitude for the beauty and food provided by the earth. As a result, my husband and I began limiting our use of plastics and ordered trees to plant this spring as a way to lessen our impact and give back to the earth. The future is unknown and can look scary, but I feel immense hope within this community. I can imagine falling into despair without it, without you. With this church as my home, I am more thoughtful, brave, and inspired, which is why I increased my pledge by 20% this year. These are things I want to support within myself, within my community, and within the world I live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. Before I welcome John Poten, I'm going to see if I can put this back in gallery. Okay, I'm just going to leave the technical piece alone and invite up to the pulpit a member of the stewardship committee and just a virtual force of nature and a pillar of this church, John Poten to share a brief update.
Good morning. By now, hopefully, everyone has received this pledge envelope. We urge you to make your pledge as soon as possible. As of 11:30 p.m. yesterday, 56 pledges have been received, and that financial total is $131,074. We greatly appreciate and thank those generous pledges who have already pledged, and we look forward to receiving your pledge. Board members are available today after service to talk about priorities for next year's budget. This will be held during the virtual coffee hour on Zoom. And next week, we have a special pledge drive celebration. This will be held at an outdoor coffee hour next Sunday, April 17th, not this Sunday as stated in the e-news. And yes, it will be live on the church lawn. And yes, it is true that the Stewardship Committee will serve coffee and bagels. We hope to see you all there for that wonderful celebration. Thank you very much for your generosity.
Thank you, John. And now, let us enter more deeply into our time of worship together with the Prelude.
This is an invitation to nudge awake your senses and your spirit to arrive into this moment more fully, relaxing, breathing, staying just as you are. With your eyes, notice 5 different sights of the morning that greet you. With your hands, notice 4 different things you can touch this morning that greet you. With your ears, notice 3 different sounds of this morning that greet you. With your nose, notice 2 different smells of this morning that greet you. With your tongue, notice 1 taste of this morning that greets you. With your senses, awaken to here and now, to this present moment, to the company of these beloveds, gathered now to usher in the new day, awake together and breathing, breathing, breathing.
now I'd like to welcome Liz Benjamin to light the chalice this morning. The chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And as Liz lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, I welcome you to light a chalice at home if you have one nearby. We light this flame, an enduring symbol of our collective commitment to lead with truth and compassion. Please join me in saying the words of affirmation adapted from Universalist minister L. Griswold Williams. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant. Thank you, Liz.
Good morning. I'm Liza Earl Centers, the Director of Lifespan Spiritual Exploration, and I have a story for all ages this morning. There is an ocean here on the lower level with some shells, so if any young or young at heart people would like to come in closer to hear the story, you're welcome to. This is a story called The River and the Clouds. It's an adaptation of a story by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I see I have someone coming closer to hear this story. Welcome, Louisa. It's so great to have you and your sounds in the sanctuary. Great, and others coming up too. If you'd like, you could hold one of the shells while I tell the story. That's fine. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful and graceful river finding her way among the hills and forests and meadows. She began as a joyful stream of water, dancing and singing as she ran down from the top of the mountain. She was very young at the time, and as she came to the valley, she slowed. She was thinking about going to the ocean, and she grew in power and size, winding gracefully among the hills and meadows. One day, she noticed the clouds. There were so many of them, changing shapes, all sorts of colors and forms. She did nothing during these days but chase after the clouds. She wanted to possess a cloud, to have one for herself. But the clouds float and travel in the sky. She could never reach them, and plus, they were always changing form. Just as you tried to catch one and it disappeared, Louisa. Maybe some of you have noticed pictures in the clouds before. 1 minute it might look like a turtle, and then 2 minutes later you look back and it's more like a wizard's hat. Because the clouds were always changing, the river got frustrated. Her main pleasure and joy had become chasing after those clouds, one after another. But she got so frustrated because they were always changing and disappearing, never lasting very long. After a while, despair and anger and hatred became part of the river's life. She could not get those clouds. One day, a strong wind came and blew away all the clouds in the sky, and the sky became completely empty. Our river felt completely lost and sad, for there were no longer any clouds to chase. That night, the river had the opportunity to just be. For the first time, she heard her quiet inner voice. And she discovered something quite important. She realized that what she was looking for was right there in herself. For clouds are nothing but water. And since she herself was also water, she was in the clouds. The next morning, when the sun was in the sky, she discovered something beautiful. She saw the blue sky for the first time. She had never noticed it before. She had only been interested in the clouds, and she had missed seeing the sky, which is the home of all the clouds. Clouds are important, but the sky is stable and always there. She realized that the immense sky had been in her heart since the very beginning, and this insight brought the river peace and happiness. She saw the vast, wonderful blue sky, and she knew that her peace and her stability would never be lost again. That afternoon, the clouds returned. But she did not want to possess any of them. She could see the beauty in each cloud, and she was able to welcome all of them. When a cloud came by, she would greet him or her with loving kindness. And when the cloud wanted to go away, she would wave them happily onward with loving kindness. Maybe we can wave these clouds happily onward. She realized that all clouds are her, and she didn't have to choose between the clouds and herself. Peace and harmony existed between her and the clouds. This was the mind of the river at that moment. So they took each other's hand, the river and the clouds, and hand in hand, they made their way to the ocean and practiced walking meditation, slowly, slowly flowing to that ocean. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming forward.
I think there's plenty of clouds out there today for the river to watch. A little too abundant. Generosity is a spiritual value that is central to our personal well-being and the well-being of our church community. It is a blessing and a privilege of our free church tradition to support the shared values of this congregation with the generosity of our collective financial resources. Each month, through the UCM Community Pouch Program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. During the month of April, our community pouch recipient is Vermont Interfaith Power and Light. The donations received this month will be designated for supporting the newly established Ellie Cressy Webster Memorial Program. This program will support improving energy efficiencies at those faith-based communities which are currently not eligible for the current Vermont Interfaith Power and Light grant program. And I just want to interject here a quick personal shout out to Harris Webster a fellow choir member, and also someone I've marched next to in climate change demonstrations, for his role in setting up this special memorial program. Thank you, Harris, for your inspiring commitment. Your contribution to the UCM Community Pouch this month will directly support this work. You can make a financial contribution today by placing your offering in the pouch found at the end of the pew, if you are here in the sanctuary, or by donating online. Go to ucmvt.org and click Donate to UCM. There are options to contribute to the general fund, which supports the general operating budget of the church, the community pouch, or both. You can also mail a check to the church, or you can use our text to give option. Simply send a text message with the word give to 802-266-4848 and follow the instructions sent to you. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity in many forms. While the offering is being given and gratefully received, please enjoy a musical offering played by guest musician Stephen Brown.
Thank you, Stephen. I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer, a time that we set aside for settling into quiet reflection and for tuning into the condition of our hearts and spirits. We begin by acknowledging the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this time of worship. All that we celebrate and that brings us joy, and all that we grieve and that weighs heavily on our hearts. Today, you are welcome to share your joys and concerns in the Zoom chat or Facebook comments if you're joining online, so that we might offer one another our care and support. Ruth Whitty is our lay pastoral caregiver this morning. She's available to lend a listening ear of care after the service, and her phone number will be shared in the Zoom chat and is also available in the church directory. I have a couple of pastoral concerns to share from our community. Let us send love to the family of Margot Prendergast. Margot's mother, Jan Childs, died this past week in St. Paul, Minnesota. She was surrounded by her 3 daughters at the end, including Margot. Some of you may have had a chance to meet Jan when she lived in Montpelier temporarily before moving to Minnesota 4 years ago. Notes and cards to Margot and Brian are very welcome. And let us share in gratitude that longtime UCM member Norma Raymond is now at Woodridge Rehab after about 2 weeks in the hospital from complications with her digestive system. She's doing much better, and she welcomes hearing from the church community. Expanding our scope and our community of concern, let us also hold in our hearts all of those communities of faith who are marking holy days in this time. Ramadan in the Muslim tradition, Holy Week in the Christian tradition, and soon to be Passover in the Jewish tradition. May these days be blessed. With all the joys and the sorrows that have been shared and are being held in the silence of your hearts, may you know that you are held in love, in the love of this community and of the expansive love that moves beyond us. And let us continue to share in this time of meditation, inviting in a fuller breath, letting out that breath as you relax and arrive more fully into this moment, knowing that in this moment, when we are awake to the present, there is abundance. Amid the ordinary, there is beauty, there is love, there is peace. What reminds you of the abundance of here and now? I share with you this video that shows some of what you had to share in response to this question.
Thank you. It's the people in our community that reminds me of joy and abundance.
Hey, Andrew.
Breathing in and breathing out. Let us now join in a time of quiet meditation, at the close of which we will sing Spirit of Life, and you can join in song, movement, or both. Our reading this morning is by Helen Keller, the author and educator who was blind and deaf. Keller was born in 1880 and died in 1968. This is a selection from her essay, 3 Days to See. Now and then I have tested my seeing friends to discover what they see. Recently, I was visited by a very good friend who had just returned from a long walk in the woods, and I asked her what she had observed. "Nothing in particular," she replied. I might have been incredulous had I not been accustomed to such responses, for long ago I became convinced that the seeing see little. How was it possible, I asked myself, to walk for an hour through the woods and see nothing worthy of note? I, who cannot see, find hundreds of things to interest me through mere touch. I feel the delicate symmetry of a leaf. I pass my hands lovingly about the smooth skin of a silver birch or the rough, shaggy bark of a pine. In spring, I touch the branches of trees, hopefully, in search of a bud, the first sign of awakening nature after her winter's sleep. I feel the delightful, velvety texture of a flower and discover its remarkable convolutions, and something of the miracle of nature is revealed to me. It is human, perhaps, to appreciate little that which we have, and to long for that which we have not. But it is a great pity that in the world of light, the gift of sight is used only as a mere convenience rather than as a means of adding fullness to life. If I were the president of a university, I should establish a compulsory course in how to use your eyes. The professor would try to show his pupils how they could add joy to their lives by really seeing what passes unnoticed before them. He would try to awake their dormant and sluggish faculties. Over the past few weeks, you may have noticed the first signs of awakening nature after her winter's sleep. For my part, I have been watchful for the first signs of the crocuses that we planted in the fall along the road. If you happen to drive by my house and you see them, let me know. Little by little, I have seen their shoots emerging, pushing up out of the soil, and along with them, the first signs of daffodils and the buds on lilac bushes. Being awake right now to the change of seasons means having a front row seat to the fickleness of Mother Nature as she turns towards, then away from the bright sun and the warm days, as today's weather demonstrates. Anyone who has lived in Vermont or in a northern climate for a while is all too familiar with the ritual of early spring. Mother Nature at times seems slow to awaken from her winter sleep. And I don't think Mother Nature is the only one who is difficult to awaken. Our senses may also be dormant and sluggish, still reviving from the winter months when there's less variety in the landscape to catch our attention. And it's not just a season of winter that may lead to a slumbering of the senses and our spirits. There are seasons in our lives, too, when we become less awake, less attuned to what is right before us. In these seasons, we may be less aware of the here and the now, the present moment and all that it has to offer. In the reading I shared, Helen Keller, who became blind and deaf as a very young child, is incredulous when a friend returns from a long walk and reports that she had not observed much. Keller reminds us that our senses, and for her, sight in particular, is not just a convenience, but it adds fullness and joy to life. Sometimes, though, we need assistance in awakening our dormant and sluggish faculties. To be awake to now is to recognize what we might have easily missed or taken for granted. It is to come into the full presence of here and now and to appreciate exactly what is right before us. Keller describes this so beautifully. The delicate symmetry of a leaf, the smooth skin of a silver birch, the velvety texture of a flower. In preparation for this service, the worship team shared the invitation to submit a photo or a video of what reminds you of the abundance of here and now. And you shared toes in the sunshine, a comfortable reading chair and shelves full of books, a simple, satisfying meal, an open tulip, playful pups, a bird at the feeder, baby's first roll. All of these are things that on any given day might pass us by unnoticed. Awakening means paying attention to what is right in front of us and all around us. It means rooting ourselves in both what is here physically and what is happening now, in this moment. When we awaken and attune ourselves to right now, we can open to a sense of abundance. The Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield writes, "The state of abundance is concerned with a deep sense of gratitude. When we open to abundance, we can enjoy the fog lifting from the morning's melting snow, in the steam rising from the hot bowl of tomato soup on our lunch table. We can appreciate the half smile of the tired waitress, the silver crescent of the moon at twilight, the unstoppable laughter of children in the schoolyard, and celebrate the fact that we are here, breathing and alive on this marvelous earth. We are here, breathing and alive on this marvelous earth. That is a miracle and a blessing, and one that we know is also fleeting. Some of you know all too well that our days on this earth are numbered. In the face of this limitation of time, we can begin to feel profoundly aware of how abundant each segment of time really is, how full of life and living each week, each day, each second is in the face of the alternative. Each simple and ordinary moment is to be treasured as the gift that it is. And yet it is far too easy to be pulled away from the abundance of here and now. Our anxieties can pull us into worry, planning for worst-case scenarios. After 2 years of pandemic living, anxiety might be routine, a habit even, as you've grown accustomed to preparing for the next shoe to drop. Our attention can feel divided between what is before us and what is happening many hundreds of miles away. And what we are paying attention to may have us feeling conflicted. While spring awakens here and we delight in the early buds on the trees and the morning chorus of birdsong and lengthening days, there is war raging and ice caps melting and people we love who we are losing, and the daily struggle to stay afloat with food on the table and a roof over our heads. We live with the perplexing paradox of being attuned to the here and now, while also being able to witness from afar atrocities that break our hearts. We live with the paradox of the presence of such joy and beauty in the here and now, alongside the pain and the suffering. This is why I believe that awakening to the abundance in the ordinary is an act of resistance. It is to say that though there is pain, and though there is much that points to the contrary, yes, there is beauty. There is good. Yes, my heart can sing with the utter joy of my good fortune to be alive and to witness this small act of kindness, or this beautiful piece of creation, or this healing piece of music. Awakening to the abundance of now doesn't mean denying that there is suffering in our own lives or in the world. It doesn't mean ignoring the pain of others. It doesn't mean that needs for basic human survival should go unmet. With an awakened heart, we are open to the deep connection that we have to others and the world around us, And that connection is the source of abundance, the source of gratitude that can soothe our souls and motivate our service and action. I will admit that it is far easier to awaken when the sun is shining, when other worries don't preoccupy our minds, but even in those moments when our senses are sluggish or our minds are pulled elsewhere, we can open our hearts with attention to the world and see, hear, and touch, smell the abundance of now. The writer Anne Lamott recently shared her reflections on turning 68. As with much of her writing, she reflected humorously and poignantly on the quandaries of human life and on the question of how to live in the face of the paradox of this particular moment. She writes, "Well, how does us appreciating spring help the people of Ukraine? If we believe in chaos theory and the butterfly effect, that the flapping of a monarch's wings near my home can lead to a weather change in Tokyo, then maybe noticing beauty, flapping our wings with amazement, changes things in ways we cannot begin to imagine. It means goodness is quantum. Even to help the small world helps. Even prayer, which seems to do nothing. Everything is connected. But quantum is perhaps a little esoteric in our current condition. Well, mine. I'm sure you're just fine. I think infinitely less esoteric stuff at 68. Probably best to have both feet on the ground. Ogle the daffodils. Take a sack of canned goods over to the food pantry and pick up trash. This helps our insides enormously. So Sunday, I will celebrate the absolutely astonishing miracle that I specifically was even born. I will celebrate that I have shelter and friends and warm socks and feet to put in them, and that God, or Gus, found a way to turn the madness and shame of my addiction into grace. I'll shake my head with wonder, which I do more and more as I age, at all the beauty that is left and all that still works after so much has been taken away. So celebrate with me. Step outside and let your mouth drop open. Feed the poor with me locally, or if you want to buy me something, make a donation to UNICEF. My party will not be the same without you. Let us shake our heads with wonder, step outside and let our mouths drop open in awe of it all. Let us nudge our senses awake to this day and all it has to offer. Let us offer the day our presence, our attention, our reverence. Let us live into the fullness of this day, awake and open to the abundance that awaits us. So may it be. And please rise in body or spirit. Join in singing our closing hymn, number 21 in the gray hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth.
For the splendor of the
As we draw our service to a close, we extinguish the chalice and carry within each of us its healing flame, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope into the days and the week ahead. And now please join me in saying our congregational mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve human need, and protect the earth, our home. And I'll invite you once again, if you are on Zoom, to turn your video on, to go into gallery view. Folks in the sanctuary can see all of you on Zoom. And let us reach out to one another in gratitude for this time shared together and with love for this community. May you go into the abundance of this day, present to what and who is in your midst, awaken to your connection to all that is. May you go in peace and return again in love. And we conclude our service with the postlude.